Hello, Star Citizens, and welcome to a very interesting video. A video that I did not anticipate having to make, but we have to make it. So essentially, I don't know, I didn't count, but I think like 20 different ships have been rebalanced. Some got nerfed, some got buffed. So this is big for a lot of reasons, right? Like if you have been planning a fleet, right, and then one ship gets buffed or nerfed, it can drastically change your fleet because maybe you were right on the cusp of going up or right on the cusp of going down, and then something gets buffed and now that goes up, and because that went up, something else can go down. So there's massive shifts that can happen when just one or two ships get buffed. But when 20 ships get buffed, now you have to relook at your entire fleet. And so that's what this video is. You might want to sell certain ships by the time we're done with this, but I would still wait before you sell them, before you upgrade them or whatever. I would wait until they're actually in game, because we don't know, there might be things that are not listed here that are going to change. Like, for instance, they mentioned that Redeemer, we'll talk about the other things, but they mentioned the Redeemer is going to get better maneuverability, but that's not actually listed. They just state it up top. So let's get into it. Woo! This is a doozy right here. All right, so I'll just read the whole thing. I'll be quick with it, and then you could skip past this part if you want. And but I think it's important to read this so we know what we're expecting going in. This is on the forums, by the way. You can go and look at these yourself. As part of the ongoing development of vehicle systems, particularly with resource network and engineering gameplay on the horizon, we've taken the opportunity to look across all our current vehicles in game and revisit some of them in terms of both default item size and quantity. Reviewing both player feedback as well as analytics on usage and performance, it was clear some ships' vehicles were underperforming and needed adjustment. Some vehicles were adjusted to bring them in line with others in their class to ensure competitiveness, and some were adjusted because they simply had an abundance of power output that wasn't necessary anymore. You may have noticed recent vehicle promotions and releases have strayed away from the typical max 1 to 2 power plants, coolers, and shield generators to higher numbers such as the Zeus and Retaliator, having 4 to 6 shield generators, for example, and these updates will roll out similar changes across other ships and vehicles. In addition to the changes below, you can also expect handling and health changes to some vehicles to make sure they do not stray too far from their intended design behavior. The Redeemer, for example, will get a buff in flight handling to compensate for the reduced shields and weaponry. The following are the new default sizes, amounts for the specified item types per ship. Example given: if something now says 1 size 2 power plant, that means it now only has a single size 2 power plant rather than gaining an additional size 2 on top of its current live loadout. Weapon changes are specifically listed for their relevant hardpoints. So what I did was, instead of just reading this to you, I actually grabbed the stats of the current ship so that when we go through this, I can show you what the stats are and then what they're going to be, or I'll just tell you what they are. And you can make the decision of if you want to keep that ship or not. Okay. So I'll tell you what it was and what it's going to. And then I'll also say whether I think it's like a big change, and I'll give you my opinion on each one of these. At least you have one opinion on what you think. All right, let's start with the Aegis Reclaimer. Now, this one, I would say this is a big one. I would say this is a big one because it is going from, now you see here it says 1 size 4 cooler and 1 size 4 shield generator. Well, if you didn't know, the Reclaimer had 3 size 3 coolers and 3 size 3 shields. Those are now going to be capital. Capital cooler and capital shield generator. I felt like it should have always been that way. At least for the capital cooler. The capital shield generator was a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. But that is a massive change for the Reclaimer. The Reclaimer is now going to be one of the toughest ships in the game. It was already pretty tough, but this is going to put it next level. And it should be. People forget that the Reclaimer is a capital ship because it's so, like, we've had it for so long now. I think people just forget that it's a capital ship. But yes, that thing should be difficult to take down, and it should have a great cooler because it's doing heavy machinery work inside of that thing. Yes, you should get a Reclaimer. I've already been a part of the Get a Reclaimer team anyway. If you don't have a Reclaimer by now, you should be on your way towards getting one, unless you just really hate salvage gameplay. But even still, get a CCU to a Reclaimer now, and then, you know, when the ship is going to go up in price, I believe. I think it'll end up at around the $650 range. At the very least, get the CCU, and then you can change it out. And then this is the one that you'll probably see the most frustration about. This is the Aegis Redeemer, which got nerfed. So I'll put it up on the screen for each one. It'll say like Aegis Reclaimer buffed, Aegis Redeemer nerfed. So if you've been following, you know that I added one of these to the fleet a while back. I mean, I don't know if it's staying now. So what they did, let's talk about what they did. All right, so it had 2 size 3 shields, and now it's going to have 6 size 2 shields. So when I first saw that, I was like, oh, well, maybe like 6 size 2s will like add up to around the same amount as the size as 2 size 3s. No. So at some point, CIG said that it would take 3 of the one below that size to equal the size above, and that never was true. And this is more proof that that's not true, because somebody down here did the math. Because of the size 2 shields, you get 36,000 HP on your shield now, down from 200,000. That is a massive drop. That is a massive drop. Yes, it's a slow boat of a machine, and I thought that was always what balanced the Redeemer, is that it was so slow. That's a massive change. And then let's talk about the other nerf it got, because they hit the Redeemer with 2 nerfs. The turret, the 2 size 5s are now going to be size 4s. That again is a massive change to this. I would have rather they made like something else, like lowered something else, like, you know, just change something else. But the size 5s, I think, are what I think those were the Redeemer's claim to fame. Like it's a gunship. Like, why would you take away guns from a gunship? There's other ways to balance it, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying gunships should have all the guns. I'm just saying I think there's other ways to balance it without taking away the guns, which are like the primary thing. When people get in a Redeemer, they want to feel like anything I come up against is going to have a problem. That is no longer the case, because it's not as tough as it used to be, which means people aren't going to see it as much as, oh, I have to spend 20 minutes trying to take down a Redeemer, and it can't do as much damage as it used to be. So it's like, oh, one of the things that used to kill me when I fought a Redeemer was that it would take a while for me to actually beat the Redeemer, and that Redeemer was doing massive damage with those size 5s if it was fully crewed. And now we just got size 4s. I can take it. I might be able to take it. So the Redeemer threat it's lower. Now, yes, they're going to improve the flight of the Redeemer to make up for it, but I don't think that what they'll do will make up for those 2 massive losses. If they were to say, we'll improve, they said flight handling, if I'm not mistaken. Flight handling is what they said. That's exactly what they said. They said flight handling. So because they said flight handling and not speed, then that's my issue. If they were to say, we're going to buff the speed and we're going to buff the handling, then I might be okay with it. But you took 2 massive drops for the Redeemer. Like, you took away 2 massive things, which is its toughness and its best weapons. But then you're only adding one thing, and that's what makes it feel a little weird to me. Now, maybe this was always the plan for the Redeemer, or maybe they don't like the Redeemer because it's it's a ship that they never planned to make, and it was because of that contest. Maybe they don't like the Redeemer. I don't know. That's what some people say, that they don't like the Redeemer. Maybe they don't like Aegis, which you might say, well, why? What they did a buff on the Reclaimer, so obviously they like Aegis. No, they might like Aegis capitals, but maybe they don't like Aegis others. They want everybody to just go get the capital. Go get the capital. That's what they want you to do. So that's what I'd say. Go get the capital, and then you don't gotta worry about it. Yeah, moving on. So the Aegis Vanguard series, all it doesn't say all, and if you look on some of these, it says all. So I don't know if this was all, and it just says Vanguard, but but it specifically calls out the Sentinel, so I'm gonna assume they mean all. Okay. And the Aegis Vanguard used to have 2 size 2 power plants, and now it's only going to have 1 size 2 power plant. The Sentinel, of course, like it says, is going to have an additional small power plant. If you didn't know, so size 2 is medium, size 3 is large, size 4 is cap, size 1 is small, and then size 0 is snug. Real quick, shout out to Meat Salad. I think I forgot to say his name in a few videos, so shout out to Meat Salad. He's a Chunin Ninja member. Y'all say what's up to Meat Salad in the comments. He's always commenting, so special shout out to Meat Salad. My bad on forgetting to put your name in the things. I was using, I think, some old scripts or something. Anyway, so Anvil Carrack, it got buffed. Yes, you Carrack owners, you now have 2 large power plants. It used to have 1 large power plant, now it has 2, which makes total sense for a ship that's modular like that. It just makes sense. So I don't think I wouldn't say that's a big update. I just think it's a good update though. And I think the Carrack owners will rejoice, because them not being able to do cargo right now is, I know it's a problem. Anvil Gladiator. Now this one is big. This one is big because they basically made the Anvil Gladiator a decent ship. And I thought this would happen once it made it to the final 16. Now, maybe they had this planned all along. I don't know. But the fact that ship made it to the final 16 and then of the ship showdown and then got an update, I don't know, folks. I think that had something to do with it. The power plant went from 2 size 1s to now it has 1 size 2. So that's a big jump. The shield went from 1 size 1 shield to 1 size 2 shield. That's a massive jump. The missile hard points, it says now these are hard points it's saying, but I'm just assuming that the missiles are changing with it. So I'm assuming, because it had the 2 size 5 torpedoes, so I'm assuming that now it'll have 2 size 4 torpedoes. I guess you could kind of say as a nerf. But then all the size 2s, remember it had 8 size 2 missile hard points. Now all of those are going to be 8 size 4s. So if I'm reading this correctly, you now have 10 size 4 hard points on the Anvil Gladiator, or 10 size 4 missile hard points. That sounds right. Yes. Tons of missiles on the Gladiator. The weapons went from 2 size 3s to 2 size 4s. So it's a better fighter now as well. And I like that they upgraded the size 2 to size 4s, but I think this not having torpedoes is slightly problematic. It's not very problematic, but it's only problematic because size 4s don't work properly. So if they balance size 4s to work properly like they're supposed to, and do as much damage as they're supposed to, then I think it'll be fine. But if you didn't know this, when you look at size 3 missiles and then size 5 missiles, there is a massive difference, right? It's like night and day. Size 5, well, size 5 becomes torpedoes, but like there's a massive difference in the amount of damage that they do. And you would think that size 4s would be right in the middle of that, and they're not. Size 5s or size 4s are actually very close to size 3s in the amount of damage they do, and not close at all to size 5s. So it's like, imagine it being like size 3 missiles, and then size 3.3 missiles, and then size 5 missiles. That's kind of the way it feels right now with size 4 missiles. So if size 4 missiles were fixed and they actually became, you know, did the damage that was like somewhere between 3 and 4 to the point where, you know, it made more sense, I wouldn't mind the size 4s. But I'm happy that the size 2s got upgraded, but I'm not happy that the size 5s got downgraded. And one other thing I'll say about this list is there are a few things that I think are errors on the list. So I'm gonna say what I think it should say, and then I'll just tell you what the difference is and whether there is a difference, because some of these, it looks like they needed to do, I think they're gonna have to come through and edit this, because some of these things don't make sense. And so I'll point those things out as we keep going through. So should you buy an Anvil Gladiator? No, I don't think this is the time to buy a Anvil Gladiator. However, when they do that rework, definitely. And unfortunately I do think the Gladiator is going to get a Mark II, because it's just it's just very old, and I think it would be a very small project for somebody to do. I just think it's going to happen because they already set that precedent. It just makes sense for them to redo it and bring it up to that same scale that they did with the Hornet. So we'll see. Anvil Hurricane. The Hurricane got nerfed. It used to have one size 2 power plant, and now it has 2 size 1s, which is significantly less. I don't know if that'll affect the laser weapons on it. It might. And I know the Anvil Hurricane is one of those like fan favorites. So this might be one of those ones where if it drastically changes your fire output or something like that, like your capacitor gameplay or whatever, if it changes that, I could see this bothering people enough to move away from the Hurricane. But is it a massive change? No. I think the Hurricane will still be viable. Yeah, let's keep moving. The Anvil Valkyrie got a buff. Now this one I do consider to be a big one, because the Valkyrie had 2 size 2 shields for some reason. This massive ship that you can carry like 30 people on, and it had 2 size 2 shields. And now it's got 4 size 2 shields. So doubling the amount of shields is a big deal. Now, another thing is, it says remote wing turrets. Now, it has multiple turrets, but the wing turrets used to be 2 size 3s. And now they are 2 size 4s, which will be big, okay? Because one of the biggest problems with the Valkyrie is the lack of gunpowder. Or gunpowder? Did I say gunpowder? No, I said gunpower. Yeah, I said it right. Gunpowder. Yeah, let's go with gunpowder. I also think that nose turret needs some work too. I think they should up the size on that. I think it should be either way. I think they should be size 5s. That massively changes the Valkyrie for me and makes it a super valid ship. I already like the Valkyrie, but it's never gonna go above a certain level with me without some bigger changes. The size 4 weapons though are a welcome addition. So if you were on the fence about a Valkyrie, I think this should be enough to push you over. It's gonna be tougher as far as shields, and it's gonna have bigger guns on those wing turrets. The Argo MPUV 1C and 1P specifically, not the tractor, is getting nerfed, oddly enough. Now maybe this is payback for letting the MPUV win Ship Showdown the other year, but yeah, it's getting nerfed, and it's the power plant, right? And with these things, I don't know how much it'll matter because it's so tiny anyway, but it is getting nerfed. That is, it used to have 1 size 1 power plant, and now it's gonna have 1 snub size power plant. That's both the 1C and the 1P. Let's go to the mole. The mole is getting a buff. That is a size 2. It used to have 2 size 2s. And now it'll have 1 size 3 shield generator. That's big because that is a very hefty shield switch. Like, that's a big switch as far as shields. So again, people on the fence about the mole, before anything, I'll always say that I think if you're gonna go for the mole, just go for the Arastra. You get the mole as a loner, but maybe you don't want that big of a ship. And I get it, but I think the Orion was the best, but now the Orion is kind of priced properly. But the Orion, I think, is still going to go up in price. So I think the Orion will end up at like $750 or more when it's all said and done. So depends on what you want, how much money you want to spend in the game. But of course, you could just earn all this stuff in game. But if you're one of those people that spent money on the mole, or you're considering, this might be now I think this is the thing that should push you over the edge. The raft. Now, I was sitting on the fence for the raft with the raft for a while, and now I'm off the fence because I already know what I'm going to do. But I wouldn't say this one is as massive as the mole, because the mole went from 2 size 2s to a size 3. The raft is going from 2 size 2s to 3 size 2s. So it's just adding a third more shield generation. So that's good, but that's not like a massive shift like the mole had. So would that change anything on the raft? I'm glad they made it a little tougher. So I think it's more of a Argo raft owner rejoice thing. This one kind of confused me. The Gamma and the Omega, they both had 2 size 1 shield generators, and now they only have one size 1. They went from 2 size 1 shields to now 1 size 1 shield. So I think those are really weird ships, because first of all, barely anybody owns the Omega because it was a very special edition ship. So why are you downing that one at all? And then the Gamma, I think these are both the racing variants if I'm not mistaken. And the Gamma, I guess I could understand because it's a cheaper ship, but I would keep it. I would keep the extra shield generator on the Omega to make it worth more of the price that it has. Especially knowing how limited it is. I don't know. That was a weird nerf that I saw in here, and I was like, whoa, that's very weird. The C2 and M2 both getting a buff. The C2 is getting the C2 used to have 1 size 3 power plant, and now it'll have 2 size 3 power plants. And the same thing with the M2. It used to have 1 size 3 power plant, and now it'll have 2 size 3 power plants. So the A2 is, I'll just talk about all 3 of these together. It used to have 2 size 3 shield generators, and now it's gonna have 3 size 3 shield generators. That's big, because if I'm not mistaken, size 3 shield generators are like 100,000 HP per shield generator, right? So I think that takes this from 200,000 shield HP to 300,000. Now, if you take into account the fact that it also just got buffed as far as its hull HP, this thing starts to become a problem. The A2 starts to become a problem. It was already a problem, but now it's even more of a problem. So shout out to the A2 owners out there. If you are on the fence about an A2, they are trying to make it slowly but surely. They're trying to make it worth that $750 price. It still isn't. But if you can get one, using some CCUs, it's starting to look real interesting over here. And the C2 and M2, I think that's good. The one large power plant on ships that do what those 2 ships do never really made sense to me. It should have 2 power plants because it's doing stuff that other ships that size just can't do. Like carrying, multiple 100-ton tanks, or however many. I don't know how much they weigh. I just made that number up. But tanks are heavy and it can carry multiples. So both of them can carry multiples. So yeah, I think this is a good move. If you were on the fence about either of those, there you have it. The Star Runner. The Star Runner is getting a buff. So the Star Runner, and it needs a few more buffs, but I think this might be the start of something. I'm gonna have to redo if you've seen my videos, you've probably seen my Mercury versus 400i. A lot has changed since then, and this is one of those things that has changed. So I might have to do that Mercury versus 400i video here soon, and that'll be an interesting one. But it looks like the Mercury is going from 2 size 2 shields to now having a size 3 shield, a large shield. Now, it should have had a large shield because it is a medium ship, but everything about it is large. Like, it's weird. It's like a somewhere between medium and large. So yes, it deserves a large shield. And I also think it deserves slightly better hull HP. But now with the speed thing that they're doing, I don't even know. That's why I said I think I have to redo kind of the review process on that, because to me it looks like the Mercury is becoming the better ship. And we'll see later that that's almost all but confirmed. All right, so I don't have to say anything about Star Runner owners. It's a buff to an already beloved ship. So there you have it. Mercury is getting better. Caterpillar, this one is also big because it's getting the same buff as the A2. So going from 200,000 HP on the shields to 300,000, because it had two size 3 shields, and now it's going to have 3 size 3 shields. So we're down here now. 3 size 3 shields is not a small matter, and I just want to put that out there. It's not a small thing to have an extra size 3 shield. You could say it might be a smaller thing to have an extra size 2. Even then though, that's some decent HP to add it to your shield. But a size 3 is massive, because eating through 100,000 HP is already tough. Eating through 200,000 HP is tough, but eating through 300,000, now we got a problem. Now it's gonna take me a while. Now, people don't normally give up on you know, fighting when, you know, dog fighting. So it's not like people are gonna be like, oh no, you have so much more hull HP, I quit, you know, because I've seen people spend hours trying to take down an Idris, right? So it's not that. It's so much as you can survive longer, which changes your weapon, the weapons that you can use, right? So if for instance, I would have used only ballistics in a Mercury Star Runner, but getting a size 3 shield makes lasers now an option, because now I can last a little bit longer, as long as I'm, you know, if I'm going against certain ships. But now I can last long enough to where my laser weapons will be effective. I don't know if I would do that. I think I still might get ballistics on it just until that hull HP goes up. But still, you get my point. The idea is, if your ship can last longer, you can open up to using laser weapons and not worrying about running out of ammo. So the tougher ships should lean more laser, and then all the weaker ships should lean more ballistic. But at the same time, your loadout is your loadout. So whatever you like to use, go ahead and use it. But the Caterpillar, I think that was I wouldn't say it's a gigantic thing. I wouldn't say it's big, but it's like right before big. It's medium. But the shields are large. Then you got the Drake Buccaneer, which got nerfed. It had 2 size 1 shields, and now it only has 1 size 1 shield. And I kind of figured that was coming. The Buccaneer was way too tough, and they had always said it was going to be a glass cannon. They said the Buccaneer is supposed to be something that gets in, does a lot of damage, but if it gets hit, it's gone. So that actually makes sense. It's the only nerf on here that makes complete sense to me. The rest of them are up in the air, but the Buccaneer one makes sense. And I told you folks, the Buccaneer is doing really great in 3.24. I don't know if they've nerfed it, or it was in 3.23. I don't know about 3.24. If you thought the Buccaneer was going to stay at the top of the fighter food chain, you had to know that was going to change. So yeah, there you have it. It's a little bit weaker, but I think it makes sense. Drake Vulture. Now, this one is technically a buff, but it's not a big buff at all. The Drake Vulture had 2 size 1 shields, and now it's going to 3 size 1 shields. It's like 1,500, I think, HP or something like that. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all. But it's a buff nonetheless to an already really good ship. You shouldn't be fighting in the Vulture anyway, so it shouldn't be a really big deal. The Prowler. Now, this one is big, because if you look at what they did for the Valkyrie, right? The Valkyrie got 2 more size 2 shields, and it changed the 2 size 3 turrets to 2 size 4s on the wings. What do you do for the Prowler? Well, it had 2 size 2s, and now it has 4 size 2s. That doubles the amount of shields on the Prowler. And does that make me say okay, hey, go out and get a prowler now. No, not quite. Not quite, because we got the same thing on the Valkyrie. But it does put those two ships it makes the prowler worth more, right? Now, it's still a $440 ship, so I'm going to tell everybody immediately to get it in game. But hey, some people like to stop along their chains, you know. So if I'm going, let's say I wanted to purchase an A2 and it's $750. By the way, I have tutorials. If you've been watching these videos and wondering what the heck CCUs are, I have a tutorial playlist. I have a tutorial playlist where I talk about I go through step by step of how to do the CCU thing that I'm talking about. So go and check those out, because I had a lot of people asking about those. I definitely do tutorials, and also let me know in the comments if you need tutorials about other stuff. Maybe there's a lack of tutorials on certain things in the game, and I'll try to see if I can put one together when I have time. It'll probably be after CitizenCon, because CitizenCon rushes forward. But anyway, the Prowler, it was already a decent ship. I talked about the Prowler. I just did a review on the Prowler. It was already a decent ship. The problem with it is its niche role, right? Like, there's not a lot of use for drop ships right now outside of dropping people off at distribution centers. But it is a stealth drop ship, and that's a big thing. They finally added its stealth to it, so now it can keep its signature down. And it's always been a good fighter. It's got 3 size 5s. It's always been good for HRTs and stuff like that. But now I think with this shield update, I think it's legitimately, you can fight in the Prowler. Like, you could legitimately fight in it. It has enough staying power now to where you can fight in the Prowler and put in work in the Prowler. So I appreciate them doing that. I still think it needs more. What would I do with it? Think I would really just do a variant at this point, so that the hard work on the Prowler doesn't go to waste. But I just think it needs a variant that can do something else, like not cargo or anything like that, but considering that it's like a slimmer ship, it could still stay a drop ship. But instead of having those doors for people to jump out of on the side, put some guns on those, right? Like some little guns on those, so that people can, you know, land and shoot off of it or something. I would like to see it be a stealth bomber, like an alien bomber. That's one thing that we don't have. I think it looks very unique in a way to where it could be a bomber. And you know, it could be that middle range bomber that we don't have, right? So we got, like, I think size 5, like, kind of carpet bombs. And then we have like the mother of all bombs, right? But what about something in between, like the size 6, 7, 8, you know, 9? Those, I mean, we got size 9 torpedoes, but I mean, like, bombs, you know. And maybe it could do both. Maybe it could be one of the few ships that can shoot torpedoes and drop bombs, right? And maybe it keeps, like, you know, 3 size 7 bombs. And then it has 3 size 7 torpedoes. I don't know, but anyway, I'm getting off track. This isn't a make a new Prowler video. MISC Freelancer. So I just did a video on the MISC Freelancer, and then they dropped this. Now, technically, I recorded that video after they did this. So obviously, if I would have known to check the website, I would have changed it. But here's the problem. The only thing that changed from what I said in my review is the turrets. So remember I said that I think there's some issues here. There's some issues on this thing. All of the Freelancers already had 2 size 2 power plants, and they all already had 3 size 2 shield generators. They already had that. So this is saying that it's changing it to something that it already had. So my guess is that these are going up. I think the power plant is gonna go to 3 size 2 power plants, and then I think the shield generator is gonna go to 4 size 2 shield generators, because this is what it already has. So I think this was a typo, but I could be mistaken. If it's not a typo, then all they did was list what it already has, and that's weird, and I don't think that was the intention. So my guess is, I doubt that they would, you know, do this buff and then nerf this stuff, because this is a buff. And this is the buff that it did not have. So now it's going to have 2 size 3 turrets, which makes sense because that back turret was like, okay, like it, what? So the back turret now it's gonna, I think it's gonna face the back, and then the front turret, maybe it'll have 360 and you can go side and forward with it. So that makes total sense. They fixed one of the biggest issues with the Freelancer series, which is that turret being useless. This is a good time to buy a Freelancer. I prefer the max variant. I think the Miz and the base are very skippable, but I think the max is a fairly decent ship because it can carry that Ursa medevac, and it has 4 beds. It's got 4 beds. Yeah, I said it again. Anyway, the MISC Hull A. The Hull A got a buff. It used to have 2 size 1 shield generators, and now it has 1 size 2 shield generator. Not a big deal because you really shouldn't be fighting in that, but I think the MISC Hull series is going to be tough. I think a lot of people think that when they are pirates, they're going to just go and just grab everything from the MISC, and they're going to blow it up and grab everything. You're not going to blow it up. You might grab stuff, but you're not going to blow it up. Those things are going to be tough. Now, the smaller one, not as tough, but this next one, the Hull C, you can see it got a buff as well. It went from 1 size 3 power plant to 2 size 3 power plants, which is like, okay, that makes sense for a ship that can carry as much cargo as that thing can. And then, this is the big part. It went from 2 size 3 shield generators to 4 size 3 shield generators. That's massive. That's from 200,000 HP of shield generation to 400,000. Literally doubling the shield capacity of the Hull C. That's big. That is very big. Because the Hull C is already difficult to take down because of the Hull HP. But now it's got the shield generation to match. So good luck out there just thinking you're going to take down the Hull C. Now, that doesn't mean Hull C owners to go out without escorts. You need escorts. But yeah, that's a big one. The MISC Prospector got a buff. It used to have 1 size 1 shield, and now it'll have 3 size 1 shields. That's big. The MISC Prospector is already a really good ship just the way it is, but now it should be able to, you know, survive some of those rocks breaking a little better. You know, I haven't really done mining since the mole came out, to be completely honest with you. I've done a little bit here and there. I've taken the rock out, but I think I'm waiting for something different. I did do something because I when they released the things that you put on the rocks, I forgot what they're called, the mining modules. I think you put the thing on the rock and it changes, it makes it easier for certain things. I did play with that a little bit, but that was it. So I really got to get back into some mining, I think. The Prospector, that's a big buff though. The Starfarer also got a big buff. So the Starfarer, I've always thought like it could be a much better combat ship. The Starfarer could be a much better combat ship. The problem with it is that it was kind of weak. The Hull HP was okay. It wasn't great. But I think now that they've added this, it'll be big. So it had 1 size 3 shield, and now it'll have 3 size 3 shields. So tripling the amount of shield protection on the Starfarer. Because a lot of people are like, well, I don't need a Starfarer because I don't need a fueling ship and so on and so forth, and it's big and it's old. I get that. It'll get a rework, but getting 3 size 3 shields makes it now viable for, I think, a lot of fleets where it wasn't viable before, because it's like the shields are just so weak on that thing. And the Hull HP is decent, I think. I haven't checked it, but I think that makes it, that's one of those things where a lot of people were like, I'm not even considering it, to now people might consider it because of how tough those shields are. Now, I think the Starfarer is going to actually go up in price at some point. I think they'll change the price of it before they do the rework, because I think that rework is going to be pretty good. And I think the rework is going to make it, because fueling is such a, there's not a whole lot you can do with it. I think that the other gameplay on the ship, as far as its cargo capacity and its fighting capacity, I think are going to change. I think the Gemini is going to get a pretty decent buff on those guns, and I think the Starfarer will be a better ship overall. All right, let's go through these Origin ships. The Origin 350R got a buff. I'm assuming this is a buff because again they messed up on this. It says it already had one size 1 power plant, and now this says one size 1 power plant. So I'm assuming that now it's going to get 2 size 1 power plants because it's not a snub ship. So it wouldn't make sense for it to go down to a snub ship because it's a small racing ship and power plants are kind of big for racing. So there it is. It says 1, but I'm pretty sure that's supposed to say 2. Then you have the Origin 400i, and this is probably, no, there's one more big one after this, but the 400i is getting super nerfed. And it bothers me a little bit because I'm starting to wonder, like, what was the purpose of the 400i? It seems like it came out, it was great, and then it's been consistently nerfed since then, and I don't understand it. So the power plant is dropping from 3 size 2 power plants to 1 size 2. That's a massive drop. It's a 3-person ship. It's a 3-person ship, and it's an Explorer, and you're gonna give it 1 size 2 power plant? If anything, I would say at least 2 size 2s would make sense. And then the same thing with the coolers, dropping from 3 size 1 coolers, or 3 size 2 coolers to 1 size 2 cooler. That's really weird. It literally has a refrigerator on it. Like, it literally has the 2 rooms that are climate controlled. It has the 2 rooms that are climate controlled. So that's very weird to me. Like, if I had a 400i and I saw this, I would immediately sell my 400i. It's the only, out of all these things that are problematic, the things that have happened on the 400i have made me completely like, wait, this is great. And it was, underappreciated. And now I'm like, I might sell this thing. So there you have it. That's a big one. The 85X Limited did get a buff. So that one, the turret it was a remote turret, pilot controlled, obviously. Or actually, the 85X has 2 seats, so I actually don't know if that's pilot control. I think it's pilot controlled. This is one out of all the ships in Star Citizen, I've never flown an 85X, so I'm actually looking forward to getting an 85X and flying it because I've never flown one. So that's going to be very interesting. The 85X, it was a dual size 1 turret, and now it's a dual size 2 turret, which is big because the 85X, I think, is supposed to be one of those ships that's like a snub ship, but it was always undergunned. And so this is big now because now I think it can get up there with the P72 and P52, the Archimedes, as far as like being able to keep up in speed and being able to put some rounds down range. So then M50. So this one I'm assuming is another one they messed up because it already had 1 size 1 shield generator, and it's saying that they're switching it to 1 size 1 shield generator. So I'm assuming that this one's getting buffed to 2 size 1 shield generators, which would make sense because I don't know why I would like. There's people that prefer the M50, people that prefer the 85X, but I feel like a ship like that, which can race but definitely can fight too, should have at least 2 size 1 shield generators. So that's pretty good. And this is the last one and probably one of the biggest ones, depending on who you are. But the manned turret on the Constellation is now a size 3 instead of a size 2. I've always thought that turret didn't really make sense on that particular ship because the Constellation already has missiles to kind of deal with fighters, and it's not really going to do very well at fighting fighters. It's just not. It's like light fighters, I mean. Like, it's not going to do well at fighting light fighters. But having size 3 turrets, those can help. Size 3 turrets versus size 2 turrets. Size 2 turrets, I feel like those should be on ships, basically. Like I don't even know why those are like I don't want to get an manned size 2 turret. Size 3 is the smallest size that I would want to get in. And size 3 turrets, when they're manned, can definitely hit light fighters. And they don't have to hit light fighters as many times. And that's the biggest thing. The size 2 turrets on that constellation, I would get in it and I would be like, okay, this is okay. Like, but it was always like slightly subpar. So this is the last thing that I think the Connie needed outside of its rework, of course, to be big. So if you were on the fence about Connies, I don't know why you were, because they're great ships, but this is the time. And I would start with the Connie Taurus. If you saw my Freelancer video, then you know how I feel about the Taurus already before I even get to RSI. We're still in MISC. And speaking of which, I forgot the MISC Expanse. I skipped it and did the Freelancers, so that'll have to be my next one. I don't know how I did that. That was weird. I don't know how I skipped the Expanse. I must not have put it on my list or something the way it was supposed to. But there you have it. A lot more buffs than nerfs. So don't let people tell you that they just went in and nerfed everything. Let's see. Let's count the buffs. There's 1, 19, 20, 21 ships were buffed. And let's see how many nerfed. 1, 2, 9 ships were nerfed. So 30 ships changed. 21 of them got buffs. 9 of them got nerfed. Now, there were some big nerfs in there. I'm not saying those nerfs don't matter. I'm just saying overall, it was mostly a ship buff. So this is I think this is going to change around a few people's fleets, not everybody's fleet. I have 2 decisions to make now based on these changes. I think the Redeemer might leave my fleet and become a permanent constellation. And I think the 400i might leave my fleet. Actually, I might have already gotten rid of my 400i. I don't even know. I don't know anymore. I just did some stuff with my fleet, so things are changing. The A2 just solidified its spot. A2. Yeah, and I think most of the Valkyrie, I think, you know, it was already good. It did more to secure its spot. I'm glad the Gladiator got some help. Now people who own a Gladiator won't feel so poorly. Unless those size 5, missing those size 5s is really hurting you. You let me know in the comments if you're a Gladiator owner. Let me know if you're how you feel about the size 5 to size 4 thing. Because technically that's a nerf. But it buffed everything else. So it's like I don't know, it's a little give and take with that one. I'm super excited for the Reclaimer getting its capital parts though. And I'm excited for the Carrack finally getting, you know, some attention. It just feels like they dropped the Carrack and they were like, see you later. We're only giving you this because fans want it. But yeah, everything else in here is kind of, you know, standard fare, I think. The Valkyrie thing I think was big. The Freelancer thing was pretty big if it's getting those updates. But just the turrets I think is pretty big. The Hull C buff is big. The Prospector buff is big. The Starfarer buff, pretty big. The 400i nerf is big. The 85x buff is pretty big. So yeah, some pretty big things happening in there. But yeah, I thought this was worthy of a video because I don't think certain things like this should be put in like a Star Citizen Nightly, because, you know, sometimes there's like so many stories that, you know, and I don't want the thing to be a 2-hour long nightly. So yeah, I just made this video separate so that when I do my nightly tonight, it'll be like just separate. But also, you know, I think it's a very interesting change in the way that we see starships in Star Citizen. I think this is going to have a few fleets change. This is not a small change. This is pretty big. So anyway, shout out to Meat Salad again. So I gave you two shout outs to make up for the 2 that I forgot. So there you go. Shout out to Meat Salad, and shout out to all the members. And thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Every time you guys watch these videos, I'm always flabbergasted that people find anything that I say interesting at all. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.